this third part of the NZGOAL training sessions. In this video, I'm going to provide a fairly quick overview of NZGOAL for agency staff who wish to get a quick understanding of what it's all about. So, what is NZGOAL? Well, as I mentioned in the first video, NZGOAL is government guidance for agencies to follow when they are releasing copyright works and non-copyright material for reuse by others. It seeks to standardise the licensing of government copyright works for reuse using the Creative Commons licences, and it recommends the use of known rights statements for non-copyright material. In case you're not aware, Creative Commons licences are freely available copyright licences that enable the sharing of copyright works for reuse in a standardised way and in forms that are human, machine and lawyer readable. Turning now to NZGOAL's purpose. Its purpose is to enable people to reuse government material for their own purposes, and those purposes could be economic, environmental, creative or cultural, in the knowledge that they may do so legally, and to encourage experts and others to contribute to improved policy development and more efficient financial performance by government through being able to access, manipulate and provide feedback on such material. NZGOAL applies to state services agencies. If you're not familiar with the breadth of the state services and you want to learn more, you can find a list of state services agencies on the State Services Commission's website. Now, I've said NZGOAL applies to state services agencies, and it does, but whether an agency is mandated or only expected to take it into account depends on the nature of the agency. And that's because NZGOAL is government guidance approved by Cabinet, and Cabinet only directs departments. Now, Cabinet has directed all public service departments to familiarise themselves with NZGOAL and to take it into account when releasing copyright material and non-copyright material to the public for reuse. But Cabinet has also invited the New Zealand Police, the Defence Force, the Parliamentary Council Office and the Security Intelligence Service to do likewise, and it has agreed that other state services agencies, except for school boards of trustees, be strongly encouraged to do the same. Turning to school boards of trustees, what Cabinet did there was invite the Minister of Education to invite school boards of trustees to do the same. I should also make a brief mention of the Declaration on Open and Transparent Government, which was approved by Cabinet in August 2011. About a year after the approval of NZGOAL. In essence, the declaration states, building on New Zealand's democratic tradition, that the government commits to actively releasing high-value, non-personal public data. In accordance with the declaration itself, some accompanying principles called the New Zealand Data and Information Management Principles, and, this is relevant here, in accordance with NZGOAL. Cabinet applied the declaration to state services agencies in a manner similar to NZGOAL, but I mention it here because state sector agencies and territorial and regional chief executives were also invited to participate in this initiative. They were therefore invited to release high-value non-personal public data in accordance with NZGOAL. Now, what material does NZGOAL apply to? Well, as I said before, it applies to both copyright works and non-copyright material, and that covers a huge amount of things. Copyright works can include geospatial datasets, commissioned research reports, scientific datasets, collections of official statistics, datasets on government performance, photographic images, educational resources, archive film, and so on. In each case, a work is only a copyright work if it meets the law's threshold of originality, and if it does, the period of copyright has not expired, which in some cases may be relevant to old government-held works. Non-copyright material can include out-of-copyright images and material in which by law there is no copyright. So, for example, there's no copyright in most of the country's legislation. I should note that NZGOAL does not apply to information or works containing personal information, except to the extent that it contains guidance on anonymising datasets, which, once stripped of their personal information, might be licensed or released under NZGOAL. The other point to note is that NZGOAL does not apply to software. I'll now take a quick look at how NZGOAL works. The NZGOAL policy principles state the government's position on a number of issues that commonly arise in the context of agencies releasing material for reuse. They guide agencies on decisions that are required when releasing material. And they address, among other things, issues relating to open licensing, open access, creativity, authenticity, non-discrimination, open formats, and charging. The key policy principles are the open licensing principle and the open access principle. Now, the open licensing principle states that state services agencies should make their copyright works, which are or may be of interest or use to people, they should make those works available online for reuse on the most open of licensing terms with NZGOAL, and that is the Creative Commons Attribution License, unless a restriction applies. Now, if a restriction does apply, it may be appropriate to select an alternative Creative Commons license or not release the material openly for reuse at all. Now, similarly, for non-copyright material, the open access principle states that agencies should provide public online access to that material using a no known rights statement, and again, unless a restriction applies. And a number of restrictions are set out in NZGOAL which agencies are expected to consider before releasing material. To help agencies with the legal and practical issues that arise when releasing both copyright and non-copyright material for reuse, NZGOAL provides a 7-stage review and release process covering copyright-related rights evaluations, evaluations of restrictions, the selection of reuse rights, how to apply one's selected license or no known rights statement, moral rights checks, format selection and release. The last thing I should touch on is the relationship between NZGOAL and data.gov.nz. Now, data.gov.nz is a directory of publicly available non-personal New Zealand government datasets, and it links to datasets held on other government websites. At this point, it's not a repository. NZGOAL, for its part, recommends that material released for reuse be released in the first instance on an agency's own website, but if the relevant work is also a dataset, then NZGOAL prompts the releasing agency to announce the release on data.gov.nz as well. When listing a dataset on data.gov.nz, the releasing agency needs to specify the reuse rights for the dataset it is releasing. And it's important to note that these rights will, or should at least, have already been applied following the analysis set out in NZGOAL. Data.gov.nz itself, when you go to add a dataset listing, that's not the place to apply a license to your work for the first time. Rather, the agency should already have taken into account all the legal and other considerations that the NZGOAL review and release process prompts them to consider.